Hello, friends. Welcome back. I am Dr. Surya Ganduri, your host for this weekly internet radio show, Quantum Physics of Beliefs, a series of talks on developing leadership through self awareness using the knowledge from the principles of quantum physics and wisdom of beliefs. These radio talk shows are part of the Quantum Leap radio presentations, where I invite celebrated mentors from around the world to share with us on how to thrive and empower ourselves in this evolving world. And this is a special feature on every third Saturday of the month, when you can listen to a unique monthly roundtable live discussion. Rest of the Saturdays, you can listen to the weekly regular shows at 8 o'clock in the evening, Chicago time. Tonight's topic is how to read other people's energy. Learning how to read other people's energy is a crucial life skill because it allows you to look beyond what people are saying and understand who they really are at their essence. While people can control what they say fairly easily, their energetic vibration cannot be faked because it is largely controlled by the subconscious mind, meaning that it is a direct reflection of their personal emotional energy. If you can read this correctly, you can get a very accurate read on someone. However, the irony is that you must, in large part, read them energetically, as your conscious mind can only pick up on so many details. This means being able to tune into your intuition to readily understand and read someone's energetic vibration, although there are a few things that can be gleaned from simply observing how someone talks, acts, and carries themselves in an overarching sense. And so knowing what you are feeling is the preliminary step in being able to sense energy fields. Our emotions will get in the way of our perceptions. Fear, which is at the core of all negative emotions, will keep you from being able to get in touch with your own energy field and from connecting with another's. It will mask what you are sensing, what you are feeling, what you are seeing, and what you are hearing, so that you will not be able to trust your intuition. Whenever you feel a negative emotion, ask yourself, what am I fearful of? If you open yourself up and ask the hard questions, you will find that the answers are there for you. And whenever I enter a room, I immediately notice how I feel in that room. If there is another person in the room, I quickly play with the space between us by stepping forward and backward to see subtle, feel, and sense how close in proximity I want the person to be with me. If, however, I'm in a place of fear, when I walk into the room, I will not be able to trust my intuitive perception of my knowledge of the energetic space. A frequent source of my irritability and disharmony in our interpersonal relationships is not being able to notice another's need for a different amount of space between your energy field and theirs. When we are fear based, it's impossible to be in touch energetically with others. And so we feel separate from the universe and we feel alone. One way to eliminate fear is to tap on the backside of your hand, halfway between your wrist and the fingers, aligned with the point where your fourth and fifth fingers converge. Tap on it for about 1 minute, then do the other hand. Being whole is living a life of authenticity. To do this, we must be willing to ask the hard questions. And so, how do we read other people's energy? And there are 5 strategies to read people's emotional or intuitive energy. And as we all know, that emotional energy is contagious. Emotions are a stunning expression of our energy, the vibes that we give off. We register these vibrations with intuition. Some people feel good to be around. They improve your mood and vitality. Others are draining. You instinctively want to get away from them. This subtle energy can be felt inches or even feet from the body, though it's invisible. Indigenous cultures around the world honor this energy as the life force. In Chinese medicine, it's called qi, a vitality that is essential to health. Though the molecular structure of subtle energy is not fully defined, scientists have measured increased photon emissions and electromagnetic radiations about healers who emit it during their work. As I said, emotional energy is contagious. It can make the difference between a toxic relationship and a healthy relationship. It's crucial to get a clear read on this aspect of anyone you plan to regularly interact with. Then you can decide whether a relationship is feasible based on your energetic compatibility. In my life and coaching practice, this chemistry is a deal breaker. Experience has taught me that it's pointless to work with a client or form a friendship if such basic rapport is not there. You do not have to force a fit when the energy feels right. Forcing anything is simply the mind's attempt to interfere with that energy flow. Of course, we all have quirks, we all have anxieties and fears. But energy cements your bond with other people and motivates you to work through the rough spots. Nevertheless, healthy relationships have a momentum that carries them, a surrender that feels more natural when you are both in sync. And when reading emotions, realize that what others say or how they appear frequently do not match their energy. You must let go of the notion that what you see is what you always get. I have observed how people go to great lengths, purposely or not, to appear in certain ways, either to impress, either to say the right thing, or sell you on something. But this self is not aligned with their true emotions. For example, consider these examples. Your spouse apologizes for blowing up, but her hostility still lingers. A man you just met tries to charm you, but you do not feel much heart there. A friend seems cheerful, but you sense that she is hurting inside. Realize just because people smile does not mean they are happy, or just because people are reserved does not mean they are not ecstatic. Ultimately, the energy transmitted by someone's smile and presence tells the truth about where they are at. So, be smart enough to correlate a person's energy with their emotions. Most people are not being intentionally misleading. Often they do not know what they feel or project. They might tell you one thing and believe it, but you will learn to decode their emotions. Here, the surrender to focus on is saying yes to the messages your body sends. Your mind may want to talk you out of your body's wisdom. Don't allow it to. Reading energy lets you attune to how you relate to people, who you feel comfortable around, and who you do not. To avoid bad relationships and regrets, you must let go of trying to convince yourself of anything the body's intuition does not affirm. To help with this surrender, here is what to do. When identifying how you energetically respond to others, always ask, how does my body feel? Does my energy go up or down? Then follow your body's lead rather than resisting it. In practical terms, this means you want to marry someone who increases your energy, not drains it, regardless of how perfect he or she looks in person. You want to sit beside a coworker who is positive, not negative. You want to choose friends you resonate with so that you can nurture each other. Then notice the positive difference in your life. To experience the pleasure of compatible relationships, you need to use the following tips. Strategies to read the emotional energy and how you sense the presence of your fellow beings. And this is the overall energy we emit, not necessarily congruent with words or behavior. It's the emotional atmosphere surrounding us, like a rain cloud or the sunset. For example, they may give off an aura of mystery or joy or sadness. To compare extremes, think of the Dalai Lama's light, compassionate presence versus Charles Manson's deranged darkness. Presence is also associated with charisma, a personal magnetism that you are drawn to. But here is the caveat though. Charisma does not always contain heart, something to be aware of. Charisma without heart cannot be trusted. It's a dangerous combination present in many con artists and seducers. So as you read people, notice, does their overall energy feel warm or calming or uplifting, invigorating like a breath of fresh air? Or is it draining? Is it cold? Is it detached? Is it angry, depressed? Do they have a friendly presence that attracts you? Or are you getting the willies making you back off? Also, see if people look anchored in their bodies, indicating their feet are firmly planted on the ground, or are they floating outside themselves, which may indicate flakiness and distractibility. Watch people's eyes. We can make love or hate with our eyes. Our eyes transmit powerful energies, what the Sufi poet Rumi called the glands. Just as the brain has an electromagnetic signal extending beyond our bodies, studies indicate that the eyes project this too. In fact, research reveals that people can sense when they are being stared at, even when no one is in sight. An experience reported by police officers, soldiers, and hunters. Indigenous cultures respect the energy of the eyes. Some believe that the evil eye is a gaze that inflicts injury or bad luck on its target. Also, science has documented the look of love. Joining eyes with a loved one or a pet triggers a biochemical response, releasing oxytocin, the warm and fuzzy love hormone. The more oxytocin your brain has, the more trusting and peaceful you will feel. So take time to observe people's eyes. Are they caring? Are they sexy? Are they tranquil? Are they mean? Are they angry? The way others look at you can make you feel adored or afraid. Also determine, is there someone at home in their eyes, indicating a capacity for intimacy? Or do they seem to be guarded or hiding something? Certain people's eyes can be hypnotic. You avoid looking deeply into the eyes you distrust or sense may be dangerous. The less you engage negative people, the less they will zone in on you. On the other hand, feel free to fall into people's eyes who you cherish. Enjoy all that beautiful energy. Also notice the feel of a handshake or a hug or a touch. We share emotional energy through physical contact, much like an electrical current. Ask yourself, does a handshake or hug feel warm, comfortable, or confident? Or is it off-putting so you want to withdraw? Are people's hands clumsy, clammy, signaling anxiety? Or limp, suggesting being non-committal and timid? Is their grip too strong, even crushing your fingers, indicating aggression or over control? Along with these physical cues, the energy of touch reveals people's emotions. Some hugs and handshakes impart kindness, joy, and calm, whereas others feel clingy, draining, even hostile. Therefore, spend time with people whose energy you like. Be wary of those you do not, so you are not depleted. Avoid physical contact, you including with anyone whose energy does not feel good. Listen for people's tone of voice and laugh. The tone and volume of their voice can tell much about their emotions. Sound frequencies create vibrations. Some frequencies we hear below an audible range, sound can be felt. Think of a bass vibration. When reading people, notice how their tone of voice affects you. Words write the energy of tone, its warmth and coldness. Ask yourself, does their tone feel soothing? Or is it abrasive? Is it snippy or whiny? Are they a soft talker or a mumble whom you can barely hear? Signs of meekness or low self-esteem? Or do they talk too loud or too much? Signs of anxiety, narcissism, or insensitivity? Are they fast talkers trying to sell you something? Or boring you to death with a slow monotone, suggesting depression and no spontaneity? Be aware of sighing, which relays sadness and frustration. Also, a pinched voice suggests emotional repression, over control, or even a thyroid disorder. Always observe how much people laugh, a sign of lightheartedness. Does their laugh sound genuine or fake or childlike or joyous? Or are they overly serious, rarely laughing? In addition, FBI profilers interpret a quivering voice and sudden change in pitch as potential signs of deception. The most important aspect to read about energy is whether people exude a sense of heart. This is the loving kindness in us, our capacity for empathy, giving, and connection. When heart is present, you will feel the warmth of unconditional love emanating from others, which makes you feel safe and at ease. It's the unspoken sense of being accepted, not judged. No one can fake this. Our heart presence builds through our good intentions, deeds, and emotional work to overcome fear and negativity. The heart is the most positive quality anyone can have. It's healthy to be drawn into it. Reading energy is a game changer where intense emotions blur your clarity. It enables you to see past fantasies or desires, to pinpoint someone's motivations by sensing invisible messages they give off. Also, being human, sometimes you have to keep making the same mistakes until you finally learn something. You will then value the energy of the eyes more than ever. It communicates an essence in someone if we can trust this. In your life, get used to reading people's emotions. Factor what you sense into your total assessment. Maybe just a single red flag will appear, so you're not sure what to do. Then take your time. Watch how people treat you. Notice if their words back up their behavior. The purpose of reading energy is to become more empathic by sensing the nuances of different personalities. Stay alert to the signals energy sends so that you can see the whole person. And so here are some inner workings of your mind as revealed by the neuroscience and the quantum physics. Number 1 is, human brains are hardwired to hardwired for empathy and friendship. Perhaps one of the most defining features of humanity is our capacity for empathy, the ability to put ourselves in others' shoes. We are hardwired to empathize because we closely associate people who are close to us, friends, spouses, lovers, children, with our very selves. With familiarity, other people become part of ourselves. In other words, our self-identity is largely based on whom we know and empathize with. If you look at the functional MRI scans of people for brain activity, while under the threat of receiving mild electrical shocks to themselves or to a friend or even a stranger, the regions of the brain responsible for threat response, the anterior insula and supramarginal gyrus, become active under threat of shock to the self. In the case of threat of shock to a stranger, the brain in those regions display little activity. However, when the threat of shock was to a friend, the brain activity of the participant is essentially identical to the activity displayed under threat to the self. So the correlation between the self and a friend is remarkably similar. The finding shows the brain's remarkable capacity to model self to others, that people close to us become a part of ourselves. And that is not just a metaphor or poetry, it's very real. Literally, we are under threat when a friend is under threat, but not so when a stranger is under threat. This is because human beings need to have friends and allies who they can side with and see as being the same as themselves. And as people spend more time together, they become more similar. Number two, brain connectivity studies reveal striking differences between how men and women's brains are wired. A new brain connectivity study from the Penn Medicine, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, found striking differences in the neural wiring of men and women, that's lending credence to some commonly held beliefs about their behaviors. In one of the largest studies looking at the connections of the sexes at the Perelman School of Medicine with the University of Pennsylvania, they found greater neural connectivity from front to back and within one hemisphere in males, suggesting their brains are structured to facilitate connectivity between perception and coordinated action. In contrast, in females, the wiring goes between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, suggesting that they facilitate communication between the analytical and intuition. And these maps show us a stark difference, a complementarity in the architecture of the human brain that helps provide a potential neural basis as to why men excel at certain tasks and women at others. For example, on average, men are more likely better at learning and performing a single task at hand, like cycling or navigating directions, whereas women have superior memory and social cognition skills, making them more equipped for multitasking and creating solutions that work for a group. Number 3, hidden caves in the brain open up during sleep to wash away the toxins. Sleep is a best detox for the mind. A study of mice finds that sleep hoses garbage out of the brain. The trash, including pieces of proteins that cause Alzheimer's disease, piles up while the rodents are awake. And sleep opens the spigots that bathe the brain in fluids and wash away the potentially toxic buildup. This discovery may finally reveal why sleep seems mandatory for every animal. It may also shed new light on the causes of neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Although sleep requirements vary from individual to individual and across species, a complete lack of sleep is deadly, but no one knows why. To test the detox power of sleep, the researchers found that a protein fragment called beta amyloid, located in the interstitial space, disappeared faster while animals were sleeping. This beta amyloid is best known as a component of amyloid plaques in association with Alzheimer's disease. So sleep changes the cellular structure of the brain. It appears to be a completely different state. Next, number 4, right-brained and left-brained personality traits is a myth. Chances are you have heard the label of being a right-brained or a left-brained thinker. Logical, detail-oriented, and analytical, that's left-brained behavior. Creative, thoughtful, and subjective, your brain's right side functions stronger, or so long-held assumptions suggest. But newly released research findings from the University of Utah, neuroscientists assert that there is no evidence within brain imaging that indicates some people are right-brained or left-brained. For many years in the popular culture, the terms left-brained and right-brained have come to refer to personality types, with an assumption that people use the right side of their brain more, while some use the left side more. But following a 2-year study at the University of Utah, researchers have debunked that myth through identifying specific networks in the left and right brain that process lateralized functions. Lateralization of the brain function means that there are certain mental processes that are mainly specialized to one of the brain's left or right hemispheres. During the course of the study, researchers analyzed resting brains scans of more than 1,000 people between the ages of 7 and 30. In each person, they studied functional lateralization of the brain measured for thousands of brain regions, and finding no relationship that individuals preferentially use their left brain network or right brain network more often. But it's absolutely true that some brain functions occur in one or the other side of the brain. Language, for example, tends to be on the left side. Attention, on the other hand, is more on the right side. But people do not tend to have a stronger right side or left side brain network. It seems to be determined more connection by connection. Number 5, sleeping patterns shape our brains. different neural structures found in the brains of night owls. A recent study by researchers in Germany has suggested that night owls have a decreased amount of white matter in their brains compared to people who go to bed early. White matter is insulated and transmits nerve signals around the brain. In this study, 3 classes of chronotypes were analyzed: early chronotypes, intermediate chronotypes, and late chronotypes. Chronotype simply refers to the body clock of an individual, the time physical functions or change occur, like eating, body temperature, in this case, sleeping. Early chronotypes wake up early and go to bed early, whereas late chronotypes go to bed late and sleep into the day. There are many factors that are believed to contribute to the sleep chronotype of an individual. Young adults with high testosterone levels, mainly males, are more likely to go to bed late, whereas those with low testosterone levels, mainly females, are more likely to go to bed earlier. This preference also varies with age. Young people tend to sleep in, whereas elderly people wake up earlier. Why is this important? Well, it has been shown that depressed individuals exhibit abnormal white matter levels in their brains, specifically in the anterior cingulate gyrus and the corpus callosum. The study showed a correlation between chronotype and white matter composition in the left ACC corpus callosum. Late chronotypes were found to have decreased amounts of white matter in those regions compared to early chronotypes and intermediate chronotypes. It is thought that the decreased white matter due to their lifestyle choices puts them at a higher risk of depression among other bipolar disorders. And number 6, there is a direct brain-to-brain communication in human beings. There was a research study to demonstrate that it is possible to send information extracted from one brain directly to another brain, allowing the first subject to cause a desired response in the second subject through direct brain-to-brain communication. A task was designed such that the 2 subjects could cooperatively solve the task by transmitting a meaningful signal from one brain to the other brain. This experiment leverages 2 existing technologies: electroencephalography, EEG, for non-invasively recording brain signals from the scalp, and transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, for non-invasively stimulating the brain. The task that the subjects must cooperatively solve via brain-to-brain communication is a computer game. The task involves saving a city on the left side of the screen from getting hit by cannons fired by a pirate ship from the lower right portion of the screen, depicted by a skull and bones. In the game, to save the city, the players must fire a missile located at the lower center portion of the screen. If the fire button is pressed before the moving cannonball reaches the city, the missile destroys the ball and the city is saved and the trial ends. To make the task more interesting, on some trials, a friendly supply plane may appear instead of a pirate's cannonball and move left towards the city. So the players must avoid firing the missile at the supply plane. The results suggest that information extracted non-invasively from one brain using EEG can be transmitted to another brain in non-invasively using TMS to allow two persons to cooperatively solve a task via direct brain-to-brain transfer of information. Also, number 7, sound waves proven to be able to affect humans' moods. At the University of Arizona, researchers have found a recent study that ultrasound waves applied to specific areas of the brain appear able to alter patients' moods. The technique could one day be used to treat conditions such as depression and anxiety. This was a double-blind study. Neither the doctor nor the subjects knew if the ultrasound machine had been switched on or off. And patients reported improvements in mood for up to 40 minutes following treatment with brain ultrasound, compared with no difference in moods when the machine was switched off. The researchers confirmed the patient's subjective reports of increases in positive mood with a visual analog mood scale, a standardized objective mood scale often used in the psychological studies. And number 8, brain typically releases natural painkillers during social rejection. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's the playground rhyme that's supposed to help children endure taunts from classmates in the playground. But a new study suggests that there is more going on inside our brains when someone snubs us, and that the brain may have its own way of easing that social pain. These findings, published in Molecular Psychiatry by the University of Michigan Medical School team, show that the brain's natural painkiller system responds to social rejection, not just physical injury. What's more, people who score high on a personality trait called resilience, the ability to adjust to environmental change, had the highest amount of natural painkiller activation. This research team, based at University of Michigan's Molecular and Behavioral Neuroscience Institute, used an innovative approach to make its findings. They combined advanced brain scanning that can track chemical releases in the brain with a model of social rejection based on online dating. They focused on the mu-opioid receptor system in the brain, the same system that the team has studied for a number of years in relation to response to physical pain. Over more than a decade, University of Michigan's research has shown that when a person feels physical pain, their brains release chemicals called opioids into the space between neurons, dampening the pain signals. Number 9, your brain sees things even when you do not see. Another research study at the University of Arizona found that the brain processes and understands visual input that we may never consciously perceive. This finding challenges currently accepted models about how the brain processes visual information. In this study, the researchers showed participants a series of black silhouettes, some of which contained meaningful real-world objects hidden in the white spaces on the outsides. They monitored the subject's brain waves with an electroencephalogram, EEG, while they viewed the objects. They were asking the question of whether the brain was processing the meaning of the objects that are on the outside of these silhouettes. The specific question was, does the brain process those hidden shapes to the level of meaning, even when the subject does not consciously see them? The answer they found is yes. Study participants' brain waves indicated that even if a person never consciously recognized the shapes on the outside of the image, their brains still processed those shapes to the level of understanding their meaning. Let me take a short break, and then I'll talk about more on how consciousness creates reality. I'll be right back. All right, let's now look at some quantum physics of beliefs and the double slit experiment to answer how consciousness creates reality. Because is reality an illusion that we create with our minds? And does consciousness create the material world? Before I answer this question, it's important to note that reality is not simply made of tiny physical pieces. Molecules are made out of atoms, and atoms are made out of subatomic particles such as protons and electrons, which are 99.99999% empty space. These are then made out of quarks, which then are a part of a superstring field of some kind, which consists of vibrating strings of energy. We interact with a world of physical objects, but these are really just electrical signals being interpreted by the brain. At the smallest and most fundamental scales of nature, the idea of physical reality is non-existent. The famous physicist Niels Bohr, at the center of the quantum mechanics studies, he said, and I quote, "Everything we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real if quantum mechanics has not profoundly shocked you yet. You do not understand it very well enough." When you touch your hands together, it's really just empty space touching more empty space with the slightest ingredient of energetic spin of these minuscule particles. The constituents of matter have absolutely no physical structure. And this is important to understand, because if we think of the world of quantum physics as being a world of bowling balls and planets, then the idea of consciousness creating reality does not really make sense. But understanding that reality is a cosmic concoction of non-localized energy and empty space, it then becomes clear that our thoughts and the signals those thoughts register in the brain also have these same properties at their smallest level. Consciousness is one of the hard problems in science. There is no way to explain how something as material as chemical and physical processes can give rise to something as immaterial as experience. There is no reason why subjective experience exists at all. or how sentience evolved. Nature would operate just as well without subjectivity. And when we actually try to scientifically investigate the origin and physics of consciousness, we get hints that maybe consciousness and reality are not as separate as material science would have us think. And so here are some principles in quantum physics that we know today. A subatomic particle, such as an electron, can be at more than one place at the same time. It can be measured as a wave smeared out in space and can be located at several different points across this wave. This is called the wave property. A subatomic particle ceases to exist here and simultaneously appears in existence over there without ever traveling the intervening space. This is known as the quantum leap. It essentially teleports. A manifestation of one quantum object caused by our observations simultaneously influences its correlated twin object, no matter how far apart they are. Fire an electron and a proton off of an atom. Whatever happens to the electron, the exact same or exact opposite will happen to the proton. This is called quantum action at a distance. Here is another one. A quantum object cannot be said to manifest in ordinary space-time reality until we observe it as a particle. Consciousness collapses the wave function of a particle. This last statement that I just made is very, very interesting because it implies that without a conscious observer present to collapse this wave, it would remain physically unmanifested. Observations not only disturb what has to be measured, it produces the effect. This was verified in what is known as the double slit experiment, where the presence of a conscious observer changed the behavior of an electron from a wave state to a particle state. This is known as the observer effect and completely shakes what we assume to be true about the physical world. The measurement system used to detect the activity of the particle affected the behavior of that of the particle. So in replicating the double slit experiment, we compel the electron to assume a definite position. We ourselves produce the results of the measurement. Now, a common response to this is, it's not us who is measuring the electron, it's the machine that is doing the observation. But a machine is simply an extension of our consciousness. This is like saying, it's not me who is observing the boat way across the lake, it's the binoculars. The machine does not itself observe anything any more than a computer that interprets the sound waves can listen to a song. And that has led some scientists to speculate that without consciousness, the universe would exist indeterminately as a sea of quantum potentiality. In other words, physical reality cannot first exist without subjectivity. Without consciousness, there is no physical matter. And this is known as the participatory anthropic principle and was first proposed by the physicist Dr. John Wheeler. Essentially, any possible universe that we can imagine that does not have conscious observers in it can be ruled out immediately. Consciousness is therefore the ground of being and must have existed prior to the physical universe. Consciousness thus literally creates the physical world. And so these findings provide huge implications for how we understand our interconnectedness with the external world and the kind of relationship we can have with the universe. We as living beings have direct access to the source of all being and the ground of all physical existence, consciousness. We create our reality is used to refer to the fact that our thoughts create the perspective we have of the world, but we now have a more concrete and literal understanding of this phrase. We give rise to the physical universe with our subjectivity. The fabric of the universe itself is consciousness, and we just happen to possess one little ripple of a universal sea. Now, how lucky we are to experience this miracle of life as the universe continues to experience its consciousness through us. I think I will stop with that for now. Let me know if I can be of any service or help in any areas that I discussed tonight. I wish you good luck and great inspiration in your journey. I also hope that whether you listened to this live on the air broadcast or the recorded audio from the archives have heard something that resonated well with you, or even know somebody in your life who could benefit from this discussion. If so, I would encourage you to share this discussion with them and ask them to get in touch with me if I could be of further assistance to them. I hope you heard something useful while listening to this radio talk, as much as I have enjoyed presenting it tonight. Please tune in every Saturday at 8 o'clock in the evening, Chicago time, as I discuss other topics in this internet radio talk show. Also, remember that Quantum Leap Radio broadcasts on a variety of topics every week, and also in a roundtable format each month by coaches and mentors who are highly recommended as the cream of the crop and best of the best out there that have been recognized and featured. Namaste.